Hello and most welcome to 1696 of the Heidegger series. We will today continue the article Revelation and Revolution. Friedrich Engels and the Apocalypse by Roland Boer. We left off at page 6, and for those interested, you can say last time we discussed oppositions and how only oppositions could make one thing 100%. 100% good can only come from oppositions. And for you who followed also the previous readings, we saw in DCCT that in the coin there wouldn't be a coin if it didn't have two opposing sides. And compare the coin to, for instance, goodness. Without the two sides, you don't have the definite character of goodness. And I do like the Wittgensteinian idea of evil, the thing that doesn't work or not understanding language. That is a sort of one-sidedness. The world is multifarious. It has its perspective, and we have discussed that in terms of fractality, abundance, and as, for instance, many episodes ago we had Lisa Bartet-Feldman, and she said the richness of emotions are different potential actions that are beautifully stored or constructed by something bigger than ourselves. This is why realizing these things open the door to a much wider and more encompassing understanding. I would also call that a compassionate understanding. And it has also to do with one and the many, which we mentioned when we were reading the fragments of Heraclitus. Without the many, there can't be oneness. I looked into the apply list for the local university, and it turns out only at the local university there were hundreds of subjects. I think that is too fragmented. Only if you put many subjects together, you can have clearness and one-sidedness as well. So one and many are like the two sides of the coin. The author Boer is good at pointing to many things at the same time, and it stretches over a rich locality of different circumstances. That also make the possibility of a unique understanding possible. Singularity can only come from plurality. I'll continue where I left off. Much more developed than the two letters to Friedrich Engels, this last great battle of Armageddon is a send-up of the conservative reaction to the challenges of the young Hegelians, some of whom called themselves the free. Although all this light-hearted play with the Bible might seem relatively innocent, we must keep in mind that for someone with Engels's upbringing, the very act of making fun of the Bible was potentially blasphemous. For Calvinists, the entirety of the Bible is serious business. There are apparently no jokes to be found within the Bible, and one should in no way jest about it. After all, the Bible deals with matters of life, death, sin, salvation, and the future of the universe. So also for Engels. What seems like some harmless joking has a more significant undercurrent of protest. Engels made yet a third use of this biblical apocalyptic material that indicates the complexity of his interactions with the Bible. I think in particular of the closing pages of one of his three pamphlets on shelling and revelation. While most of the text is an effort to report on the content of Schelling's lectures in Berlin in 1841. Interspersed with some critical commentary, the closing pages comprise a paean to the new direction of new directions of theological and philosophical ideas that were sweeping Germany at the time. Engels had just read Feuerbach's Das Wesen des Christentums. And it obviously set his adrenaline pumping. The framework is once again the apocalypse. Heaven has come down to earth. its treasures lie scattered for whoever wishes to pick them up. The great final battle has been fought and won. The 1,000-year reign of freedom has begun. Thus Engels evokes the vast celebration in heaven after the victory of Armageddon. And this crown, this bride, this holy thing is the self-consciousness of mankind. The new grail, round whose throne the nations gather in exultation, and which makes kings of all who submit to it, so that all splendor and might, all dominion and power, all the beauty and fullness of the world lie at their feet and must yield themselves up for their glorification. As is his wont, Engels draws on other texts in building his picture. But the focus has shifted from his previous apocalyptic visions. Now we are in the millennium, after the great battle, and Engels looks forward to the unfolding of the new age. Yet there's a twist. It is not some heavenly victory that he celebrates, but a distinctly earthly human one, all cast in biblical terms. What are we to make of such a passage? It seems as though Engels's eyes have been opened and a way of the out of the stifling conservatism of his youth has now shown itself. We can write this enthusiasm off as a youthful high spirits, or perhaps too much beer and fine tobacco. But I would like to put in a word for Engels. Over against the world-weary cynicism of age, is there not still room for that sparkle in one's eye at a new discovery, a zeal and enthusiasm that really fire one up? Engels obviously had a soft spot for the glorious apocalyptic language of Revelation. The youthful Engels uses the book in various ways to make fun of and attack those who would hold him back, to tease his friend Gregor, and to celebrate his own awakening. So it seems that the terms images and modes of expression of revelation provided a distinct component of the framework of Engels's thought. Indeed, of his way of understanding his own changing place in the world. Revelation will become a major feature of his argument for the revolutionary origins of Christianity, especially because he came to regard it as the earliest Christian text. I will have more to say on that soon enough. There are two questions with which I want to close this section. First, is this the origin of the infamous secular apocalypticism of Marxism? The point has gained authority through endless repetition. The Marxist narrative, through endless repetition, the Marxist narrative of the end of capitalism, through revolution and the beginning of the new social formation of communism, is but a secularized version of the Christian apocalyptic myth of the end of the world. It is nothing less than another version of the Armageddon. detractors and believers alike continue to make this point. I am not so sure. For one thing, Engels' explicit use of apocalyptic language has petered out by the time of the German ideology. In which he uses it in a satirical way to speak of Boer and Stirner. Also in later life, especially in light of the parliamentary success of the German Social Democrats, Engels became increasingly wary of insurrection. It still had a valid role to play, but in his later letters there are more cautions against. Ultimately acts that would provide the authorities with any excuse to crush all forms of the left. His own bitter experience in the revolutions of 1848 and 1950 made him think deeply on these matters. And I will take my summary from there on. I have one splendid quote here, it's just too great to be left off. On the sixth page at the very bottom. And this crown, this bride, this holy thing is the self-consciousness of mankind. The new grail round whose throne the nations gather in exultation, and which makes kings of all who submit to it, so that all splendor and might, all dominion and power, all the beauty and fullness of this world lie at their feet and must yield themselves up for their glorification. I will settle with this quote because it's all-encompassing for the text. And this self-consciousness that emerges, I think some people would say, like emergentist, like David Chalmers or Couples Churchland. If Chalmers, I have to say, is still an emergentist. I heard some rumors he changed. But the self-consciousness of mankind in Marxism is the last turn in the long cycle of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It is when it comes to self-understanding. But I would like to expand that to see in this very text the oppositions make possible a deepening of understanding much beyond what was initially possible. Without quoting, I will mention oppositions like those between secularism, as mentioned by the author himself. The original, the infamous secular apocalypticism of Marxism, that stands in direct, healthy opposition to the Christian apocalyptic vision, where God's taking the world in his hand and the return of Jesus. The whole text is ripe with beautifully engraved oppositions. And this is strengthening the message as well. It's not too hard to understand what was the interest in Engels himself. He wanted to find a strengthening in his Calvinist beginnings by turning to the Hegelians. Although on the surface he seemed in the end to diverge for them, that divergence is the opposition that makes the original direction even harder, strengthening the impetus. Kalle, maybe some comments from you?
This title of Feuerbach's books, Das Wesen des Christentums, is, I think, typical how people reason. You have to go to the original, to the Wesen.
Oh, very good, yeah.
This book, obviously, it is underline pumping. But I suppose it's, this title is in contradiction to the Hegelian thought of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis.
Yes.
This, and how can you then have these three lines, three evolutions, so to say. And one keyword, okay, one is really interesting that he thinks this is the earliest Christian text, and author of this article will return to this argument. And this word repetition is of course important for Hegelians and Marxists and so forth. Speaking of this, Derrida wrote a book, Spectres of Marx, where he takes up this very thought. I think this is the best treatment on this whole subject. The repetition, the spectre, and so forth.
Very good. We like it.
So we didn't have we went through only 2 pages, but I think it was very helpful. Small steps sometimes are important. Perhaps we should end there, I think, for today.
You wrote something about a nose here. Against the nose.
Against the nose, what do you mean?
But Hans, what will you do against the nose?
The nose, I don't get your, what you mean by...
We'll look at it later. Well, you're right. We end the recording here. I say thank you very much for participating, Kalle Lundahl.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, you others who listening, looking. And to you all, a very pleasant morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever you're having. It was a sheer pleasure. Bye-bye, and I am.